Today, there is a threat to all seafarers, both officers and ratings. That threat is illegal drug dealing. If you work at sea, your risk of contact with drug dealers once you come ashore is high. You are under threat. This is because drug dealers see officers and ratings both as possible customers and possible smugglers. If you become involved as either a customer or a smuggler, you are in trouble. You are starting a criminal career. You risk not only your own livelihood, but you can cause severe difficulties for the ship and your colleagues. The dealers sell consciousness-altering psychoactive drugs. There are several different groups of these psychoactive drugs. One is the cannabis group. Cannabis, also known as marijuana or hashish, can be sold either as the leaves of the cannabis plant or as the more concentrated resin. The leaves are usually smoked, either on their own in a pipe or mixed with tobacco. The resin also is usually smoked, often mixed with tobacco. Using this drug can lead to bouts of laughing for no apparent reason. Other effects include changes in perception of space and time, reduced learning ability and memory. Your reflexes are slowed down. Taking this drug leads to an increased risk of infection in the nose, mouth and lungs. It can aggravate or cause heart and lung conditions such as asthma. In both men and women, it affects the sexual organs, interfering with sperm and egg production. Another group is the opiates. These include raw opium, which has a distinctive smell and is usually smoked, and the refined products heroin and morphine, both of which are powder. Both morphine and heroin are usually injected. Accurate assessment of the dose is impossible, as the drug is always mixed with impurities to make it more profitable for the dealer. So there's always the chance of an overdose. The user experiences a general sensation of well-being and altered perception of time and distance. Painful feelings are suppressed. These drugs affect the central nervous system and weaken the body's immune system. They damage the kidneys. Injection of these drugs also carries with it the risk of contracting both hepatitis and AIDS. The stimulants include cocaine crystals, usually snorted, crack cocaine, which is usually smoked, and amphetamine, which can be injected or swallowed as pills. For the user, physical effort becomes easier and powers of judgment are reduced. Users often become more talkative. The central nervous system is stimulated. Heart rate and blood pressure increase, aggravating any heart condition. There is an increased risk of infectious diseases. Impotence and frigidity are common symptoms. There is a very wide range of the next group, the hallucinogens, including the synthetic types such as LSD, PCP and ecstasy, as well as the naturally occurring examples, such as mescaline. The effects of these drugs on perception are dramatic. Colours, shapes and sounds are all altered. The user is often in a world of their own, with very different thoughts and judgment from normal. Users often suffer from mental changes, including panic attacks and paranoia. A further risk is injury or death resulting from altered perception. Another group are the soporifics. These include tranquilizers and sleeping pills. Although doctors can prescribe them, many are available on the black market. They're mostly taken by mouth. Be aware that drugs which are available over the counter in some countries may be illegal in others. If you have brought your own sleeping medication on board, be very careful. The effects can be unpredictable, especially if you drink alcohol. You must inform your supervisor of any medicine you are taking. These drugs tend to slow down nervous system activity. They dull sensation and make the user sleepy. Breathing in volatile solvents is another form of substance abuse. This gives the user a brief intoxicating effect, but at great risk. Every year in the United Kingdom alone, 70 to 100 young people die from inhaling solvents. Other than the risk to life itself, the health risks include heart failure and kidney and liver problems. Long-term abuse leads to brain, kidney and liver damage. Alcohol is legal in many countries, but it's a drug. There are many types of alcoholic drinks, from beer and wines to the more concentrated spirits and liqueurs. The user experiences a feeling of well-being, becoming more outgoing. Judgment of time and distance is severely impaired. Alcohol depresses the central nervous system, slowing it down. Heavy drinking can cause cirrhosis of the liver as well as changes in the brain. It leads to risks of pneumonia and an increased risk of injury and death due to both accidents and violence. The industry that produces alcoholic drinks is an enormous one, and although these corporations do not wish people to abuse their products, they do very little to stop them. With the introduction of Alco-Pops, alcoholic lemonades, they seem to be reaching out to younger and younger people. The issue of alcohol abuse is dealt with in another training package. Our perception of these different drugs is coloured by what is acceptable in our own culture and social group. But these drugs all have a great deal in common. With the exception of alcohol, possession of them is generally illegal. Each one, legal or illegal, has the potential to destroy your health and your life, whether you take them short-term or long-term. Using drugs on board ship can have terrible consequences, not only on your own health, but also on your job performance. This can mean endangering your shipmates, your ship, and even nearby ships and the environment. The networks selling illegal drugs include some of the most unscrupulous people on earth. All drug dealers are salespeople. Their organizations exist solely for profit. Violence and murder are the tools of their trade. This aggressive approach has made the distribution of illegal drugs the second largest enterprise on earth after armaments manufacture. This industry is continually on the search for new customers and new recruits. They especially target young people, both officers and ratings. They have no concern for the consequences of their trade on any individual or their family and dependents. Their only interest in you is how much money they can make from you. If using their products destroys your health or your family, it will not trouble them at all. Working on a ship, you need your full awareness at all times, not only for your own sake, but also for the sake of everyone on board. Even using drugs socially will change your behavior and impair your judgment. You are liable to make bad decisions, and you will be unaware that you're doing so. You become a danger to yourself and to others. Taking drugs is just not acceptable, whatever your job is on board. Several scientific studies have examined the effect of drugs on judgment and performance. In one of these, experienced pilots were trained to land on a light aircraft simulator. Once trained, they were given, under controlled conditions, a cigarette containing the equivalent of a strong social dose of cannabis. They were then tested on landing the aircraft as they had been trained. Tests were carried out 1 hour, then 4 hours, and finally 24 hours after smoking the one cannabis cigarette. Computer records of 10 different measurements of the pilot's performance were taken. These included deviation from the center of the runway, deviation in height on approach, and so on.
Again, about the same as usual.
All the measurements showed deterioration in performance for every pilot. For example, before the cannabis, the pilots landed an average of 3.5 meters off the runway center line. 1 hour after the drug, this figure went up to nearly 10 meters off center. 4 hours after, it was 8.8, and 24 hours later, it was still over 7 meters, twice the normal distance off center. Similar errors were seen on height deviation. Even an entire day after one drugged cigarette, the pilot showed a marked deterioration in their ability to land an aircraft accurately. Although not all the tasks on board ship require the accuracy of landing an aircraft, both officers and ratings require accurate judgment and good coordination. These are exactly the abilities that would be affected by drug use and could lead to accidents and injury to you and others. Poor job performance could seriously affect your ship's emergency response, putting the lives of both crew and passengers at risk.
If I could ask you to read that and make sure you understand what's happening.
These concerns have led many employers to consider very carefully their responsibilities.
Empty your pockets. You've left your jacket on the back of the chair, but I'd just like to check that you haven't got anything in your pockets.
So some companies are screening employees for drug abuse. Some national administrations also insist on random testing and testing after any accidents. The testing involves collecting samples, usually urine, under carefully controlled conditions. The person taking the sample must be properly trained and follow internationally agreed procedures.
I ask you to sign the labels.
Barcoding ensures that the sample will be anonymous throughout the testing. Sophisticated analysis equipment enables all the major classes of drugs to be detected. If evidence of any drug is found, the sample is subjected to more rigorous testing. These tests are very accurate, and if you have been using drugs, indications will be found. The prime objective is to safeguard everyone in the workplace. The International Transport Workers Federation have published guidelines, and the ILO, the International Labour Organization, has issued a code of practice emphasizing the preventative approach in dealing with substance abuse.
system. If you can go and open the machine.
Your company should have a policy on drug abuse that follows this code of practice.
Come in.
When tests are positive, it's important that the individual is offered help and the chance of rehabilitation.
I have bad news for you. There is some social and medical program for rehabilitation of drug abusers.
The overall objective is safety, and that means prevention
Positive
and
drug
counseling
test.
rather than
So it's
punishment,
my job to discuss
as in the
this.
ILO and ITF
We are
guidelines.
waiting for
Even so,
confirmation.
a positive drug test may well mean that you can no longer work at sea.
Drug test.
Have any alcohol or cigarettes in here?
No.
Nothing at all.
No, sir.
What do we have here? Sir, have a look on this, please. What is this? Is yours?
There can be no
sir.
excuse
Are
for
you sure?
smuggling drugs.
Sir, good morning.
This is only participating in a trade of misery and death.
No, sir.
The consequences for the ship and the individual concerned
Yes.
are disastrous.
Stayed up every day you had to pet.
Yes, sir.
Taking drugs threatens not only your own health, but also the lives and jobs of your colleagues. Using drugs on board ship is a dangerous act. Most illegal drugs are contaminated with all kinds of materials to increase their bulk and so the profit of the suppliers. These impurities alone represent a risk to health. For everyone who takes drugs, there is an increased risk of accident and injury due to defective judgment. They are more likely to suffer from absent-mindedness and poor memory. For some, there is the additional risk of mental illness. Don't let this happen to you.
Second abuse in my relief.
The use of drugs carries with it the risk of physical addiction and mental dependency. This will harm your job prospects as well as having a potentially disastrous effect on your family and all those who depend on you for their welfare. Those who use drugs face enormous risks, however good they can make you feel for a while. All seafarers who take drugs are a burden to their colleagues and create unacceptable risks on board ship.
Second, I can find my relief and his door is locked.
Okay, and go and check.
Sleepy? Get the captain! Wake up! Wake up!
It was my first time, Captain. I will never take this stuff again. Please, Captain, sorry me.
But do you know really what will happen if the customs
Why
finds stuff
risk
like
a
this?
good contract and a good job? With drugs, there is nothing to gain. You can only lose.
I have to write in the Siemens book what you have. For your own sake, never risk using drugs or smuggling drugs. It just is not worth it.